What is going on, everyone? It is College Football Talk, and I am your host, Hunter DeLauder. And today is Week 9 preview, where we're going to go over all the biggest games of the upcoming weekend. And hard to believe that we're already in Week 9 of the college football season. This is the last weekend of October as far as football games go. Next weekend is Week 10, and that is the first week of November. So we're going to enjoy this. Last weekend before November chaos is on the horizon. But before we do that, we got to break down all the biggest games of the weekend. We already have a major upset in the college football world tonight as I'm recording this. Kennesaw State upsets Liberty as a 27.5-point underdog. It's the biggest win in Owls history as far as point spread goes. So congrats there to the Kennesaw Owls. And possibly just a slight preview into what maybe to expect this upcoming weekend. We got a lot of big games to talk about. We got Texas Vanderbilt looking to do something they've never done before. We'll talk about in a little bit. Illinois looking to shock the world against Oregon. We got A&M, LSU in the Saturday night primetime spot. Can Bama bounce back? Plus much more. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the podcast. Trying to get to that 200 subscriber mark. We can only do that if you guys subscribe. Hit that red button below. And if you know people that love college football as much as we all do, tell them to subscribe as well. And if you want to hit me up on the socials, at DeLauderHunter on Twitter, and then on Instagram, Hunter.DeLauder83. So if you're looking here on the top right of your screen here on the YouTube is a new logo. New logos. Everything came out tonight. So really cool to see that. Really proud of that kind of stuff right there. Kind of just symbolizes this podcast right here. Love Bulldogs. Have two Bulldogs. It's no sort of fandom alignment right there. I just love Bulldogs. Okay. Love Bulldogs and football. How much more can you love? And we're going to have some more stuff in the making coming out soon. So stay tuned for that. But enough said with that department. We're going to get right into this preview because we have a lot to talk about tonight. And it's going to start in College Station, where the 14th ranked Texas A&M Aggies will be hosting the number 8 LSU Tigers. This has become like a sort of a makeshift rivalry that was put together when A&M came into the SEC first, like in 2012. These two teams started playing each other a bunch, like in rivalry week, and it's kind of just stuck now. So LSU's kind of controlled most of the series for the most part. But listen, A&M has had some success at home, and they're looking to get another big win Saturday night. Obviously, we're going to break down the keys to the game here. I have my iPad with me. So we're going to start with A&M. A&M's keys to the victory. They need to run the football. Run the football, run the football, run the football. They are a balanced attack offensively. They're not going to overwhelm you with the passing offense. Their passing game statistically is not very good. Connor Wickman has played better since he's returned from injury, so that's a good thing. But this offense has to run the football to be efficient, to score points. Le'Veon Moss is going to have a big game. Moss, 105 carries so far this season. He's averaging almost 7 yards a carry. He has 8 touchdowns. He has gone over 100 yards in 2 of the last 3 games. So that's something he's going to have to bring on Saturday. LSU's defense is okay, 33rd ranked. They are giving up just over 114 points, 114 yards per game. So it's a pretty solid group. LSU's defense has been much improved the last few weeks, led by you have your big linebackers, your D linemen. So they've been playing a lot better. This is post Harold Perkins injury too. So really interesting to see there how they've just been able to take like the next step, even without one of their best pass rushers. But against, and they'll need to attack a weak secondary that LSU brings to the table. LSU's pass defense is ranked 103rd in the country. Talked about, though, just briefly ago, how A&M's not really going to overwhelm you in the passing game. They're ranked 107th throwing the football. And so it's nothing crazy. They're under 180 yards or 190 yards a game. They're 186. Connor Wigman has played better, but he's going to have to get his playmakers involved, like Noah Thomas, Cyrus Allen, John Day Walker. These guys are going to have to step up big. And they're, like I said, they're going up against the LSU secondary that is vulnerable. They will give up plays. It's just a foregone conclusion. I mean, no matter who's playing them. I mean, UCLA's had success against them. Ole Miss has. USC, Arkansas had some success. They couldn't run the football at all. Arkansas couldn't. But it's going to start, though. They got to be balanced. Running the football effectively enough. I think Le'Veon Moss is going to have over 100 yards in this game. They're going to need to control the clock, and then they're going to need to be able to hit their shots when they're there. I think look at the Missouri game as a good indicator. Missouri's pass defense is up there as one of the better ones in the country, but I mean Wegman was able to shred him, and it was because they were able to run the football so effectively. I mean, you look in that game, Wegman didn't have a touchdown in that game. Le'Veon Moss had 3 touchdowns, but they were able to run the ball so well that it was able to create those opportunities down the field, create space in that secondary to find those guys and those mismatches, and they were able to dominate. They need to be able to get pressure defensively on Garrett Nussmeier. This has been the great challenge for any team that has played LSU this year. Nobody has been able to get home on Nussmeier except for South Carolina. PFF came out with a sack thing today on LSU's offensive line. Nobody in that starting offensive line has given up a sack yet this year. So it was a backup that gave up 2 sacks in that South Carolina game. And I mean, A&M's pass rush, it hasn't been statistically up there as one of the better ones, but they certainly have guys that are going to be able to, if given the chance, they can create havoc. It's going to be Shamar Stewart. It's going to be Nick Gordon. It's going to be Cassius Howe, Albert Regis. These guys can put numbers up. They can create pressure. And listen, we talked about, I mean, Georgia wasn't going into the Texas game with, high expectations of possibly getting home. Like we were raving about that O-line. And Georgia's able to dominate in that one. Now, this is a different beast, though, with Will Campbell and Emory Jones on those tackle positions, plus those guards. I mean, this is a different beast for sure. And, Notre Dame put up a good fight against A&M's D-line in week 1, and that was without a couple of Notre Dame offensive linemen. And, we'll see if A&M's able to get home. They're going to have to. They rank 43rd in the country in team sacks. They're averaging about 2 a game. So it's good numbers. But when you're playing against an offensive line to the caliber that LSU is, you're going to have to take it up another notch. I mean, LSU's second in the country. They've only had 2 sacks all year. They're only behind Army. They haven't allowed a sack since that week 3 game. And that's going to be really the telltale sign, because if Nussmeier has all day long, he will have opportunities with those weapons, with CJ Daniels, with Aaron Anderson, with Kyron Lacey, with Mason Taylor. He's going to be able to have chances to just have all the time in the world, find his guy, make big plays down the field. I mean, it's the secret's out on that. I mean, this O-line is living up to the hype as far as pass protection goes. Running the football, they're a little so-so, but pass pro, they're up there as one of the best. And that's what it's going to come down to. I mean, each and every week in the SEC, these games always come down to winning in the trenches. You either are good enough to win in the trenches and get home and create havoc, or you're just going to get stood up and it's going to be a great wall and you just can't cross it. And you're just very susceptible to giving up a lot of yardage, a lot of points as a defense. And then the 12th man. This game is at home, obviously, for A&M. They need to play a role. They were really good in the Notre Dame game. Unfortunately, the team wasn't enough to get the win, but this is going to have to be another notch, it feels like. This is going to have to be one of those games where the crowd's going to have to be a huge factor in this game. I mean, we've seen it already with the Tennessee game, with Oregon. Those teams were underdogs in those. Now, A&M is a favorite in this game. Obviously, they're a 2.5-point favorite as of right now. But that doesn't mean a lot of people are putting a lot of people are like LSU in this game. That means A&M needs to step it up as far as the crowd goes. Like, they need to take it up to the next notch because they have to play a factor. I mean, LSU had 8 false starts. I believe that was the number. It could have been more last week in Arkansas. And that's nowhere near what kind of atmosphere A&M is. So if you can get LSU behind schedule, create pre-snap penalties, just overwhelm them, jump ahead early, get a big lead, and just take the crowd up another notch, that will be huge in this game. Now, LSU has shown in like week 3, that South Carolina game. I mean, they went down, I believe it was 17-0, 17-7 maybe. And that crowd was unlike any for a noon game that I've seen in a while, probably since like the Georgia-Arkansas game. And LSU was able to slow things down, take it one play at a time, and they were able to overcome all that and win the game. So they've been in a hostile crowd before like that, but I just feel like if A&M can get out to like a 10-0 lead, let's say, create a turnover, and then all of a sudden LSU has like one or two already pre-snap penalties, and it's like the second drive of the game, now you're in trouble, I think. And this is a different beast for sure. But if you're LSU, keys to the victory, you need to establish the run game. Both these teams are very similar as far as maybe just kind of overall plan of what they need to do. Like A&M, they need to run the football. Caden Durham has done a really nice job settling in as the main guy in the backfield since John Emery went down with the lower body injury. He was out for the year. So Caden Durham steps in. He's really anchored it down. 62 carries, 382 yards. He's averaging just over 6 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns. And A&M is middle of the pack, 36 against the run. They're giving up just about 116 yards a game. So, I mean, even if you're just getting enough, it doesn't have to be, I think, what Le'Veon Moss needs to put up. I think Le'Veon Moss is going to have to put up over 100 yards. If you're Durham, maybe pushing that 80 to 90-yard range, just to make it a threat enough to where you're like, okay, maybe we have to maybe not just push everyone back, play zone, because now we got to worry about the run. Because if you could run the football enough with that pass pro, Nussmeier's going to have a great day throwing the football around. But if A&M's able to shut down the run, then you can kind of start pushing people back, playing more pass coverage, and it might make things a little more difficult for Nussmeier to try to find those guys that are open because you're making the offense one-dimensional, and then now the defense is kind of one step ahead of you. Getting pressure on A&M. Talked about with A&M getting pressure on LSU. LSU getting pressure on A&M, I think is going to be a little bit more easier. A&M is 21st in sacks allowed, so they've only gotten up 7 on the year, only about 1 a game. So it's a pretty good offensive line for the most part. But LSU's defense has just taken it up a notch with these defensive linemen, linebacker guys. I mean, LSU, their pressure rate is one of the best in the country. They're 8th in team sacks. They're averaging almost 4 a game. And Whit Weeks, Braden Swinson, and Savion Jones have just been game wreckers all year long. Whit Weeks, the last 2 weeks, has been the nation's best linebacker, hands down. He's been all over the place. He's been an absolute animal. I mean, the Ole Miss game, the highlighted game, 18 tackles, 1 sack, 18 solo tackles, and he had like 3 tackles for loss. I think last week he had another sack. He might have had a fumble recovery as well. He had like 8 tackles there. I mean, he's been an absolute animal. Braden Swinson's their best sack leader as far as getting home on the quarterback. But him and Savion Jones, both on the edge, are going to definitely create problems. And we'll see if Wegman's up to the challenge here. This is why it's even more of a necessity that they run the football, because you do not want these guys just pinning their ears back and just saying, okay, we're going to line up like a track dude and just take off. And because we know you're not running the football, we're just going to, here we go. We're going to get ready, get set, and just fire off. And they need to stay disciplined, LSU does. LSU is averaging almost 8 penalties a game. That is 104th in FBS. They're 77th in penalty yards per game, too, almost about 57 a game. And that crowd, talked about staying ahead of schedule. You start getting these pre-snap penalties on you, or dumb, stupid mistakes, and you're, instead of 3rd and 5, 3rd and 4, now you're looking at 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, 3rd and 15. Talk about getting off schedule, that will kill you. And that can't happen, especially if you're trying to stay balanced enough offensively and run the football. You can't run the football if you're backed up like that. So they're going to have to find a way to not get stupid penalties called on them. Otherwise, it's going to play right into what A&M wants you to do. And Nussmeier just needs to play mistake-free football. Talk about how he's given the chance, he will take advantage of it. He has thrown 6 interceptions this year, only 8 touchdowns. So he is susceptible to giving the ball over some. A&M is a top 30 defense in pass interceptions. So We'll see if maybe A&M can sneak one or two. I think they're going to have to. It's a decent secondary that has created turnovers. Look at the Florida game. They are, you overthrows and tipped balls will play right into what A&M is looking for. And let's just see if A&M secondary can just hold up enough against those weapons on the outside. It's kind of, Kyron Lacey's the main guy for LSU, but each week it seems like there's a different guy stepping up. And it may be Lacey with the big catch, the big touchdown, but he may not necessarily be the leading receiver each and every week. So it's really nice to see that they're spreading the ball out like that to those four big guys, the four horsemen, I'll call them. But as far as game prediction goes, I think that crowd atmosphere, I keep talking about it. I said it would be the extra added element for the Tennessee game and why I like Tennessee in that one. I liked Oregon because of the Autzen crowd. I just think the 12th man is going to show up, show out, and those cultish weirdos out there in Aggie land are going to be ready to wave those white towels, not for surrender, but to show that they are ready to take down the LSU Tigers. I like A&M to win this one 31-27. I guess that means they cover, but I'm not touching this one. I think this could go either way. And who would have thought going into this game that this would be for outright first place in the SEC? The last two unbeaten teams in conference play. Not overall record, but in conference play. So, if LSU gets past this one, then you really start looking, then you're like, okay, well, we had the Bama game coming up, but outside of that, it's looking pretty good. And if you're A&M, you're saying, okay, we get past this one. We have the Texas game at the end of the year. We just got to keep staying ahead of schedule. Like everything's in front of them. Whoever wins this game, everything's in front of you. Regardless of even if like A&M loses this, I still think they still have everything in front of them, but then they need to show up. So that would be their second loss. That they probably need to win the Texas game, I think, to make the playoff. But if they win this one, it really helps out a lot. I think LSU can rebound. It needs to not be a blowout, let's say, but like they can rebound and beat Bama and finish the season out strong. A USC loss is really hurting them right now because USC is just, I think they've lost now 3 or 4 in a row. So it just doesn't look like a nice loss at this point. There's pretty losses when you start looking down as the season goes on, but that's just not one of them. So big game for both, obviously, and it'll be the ABC Saturday night primetime game. So, all right, moving on to another game in the SEC. This is the number 5 Texas Longhorns heading to Nashville to take on the number 25, newly ranked, first time since 2013 that the Vanderbilt Commodores are ranked 25th in the nation. We just said Texas is an 18.5-point favorite as of right now. 52.5 is the over-under. And Vanderbilt is looking for their first time in program history to beat multiple top 5 teams. They came into this year without any top 10 wins. They beat Bama earlier this year as the number 1 team, and they're looking to take down the number 5 Longhorns. Remember the Bama game, they beat Vanderbilt, or Vanderbilt beat Alabama. That was following the Georgia game. Texas just got beat up by the Dogs. Now they had to head to Nashville, take on Diego Paiva, and all that. Look out. So how can Vandy win this game? I think at this point, it's near a 3-touchdown spread. You start looking, trying to dive in deep into the tape, just down to the stats. How can Vanderbilt win this? What's the key? What's the plan or the route to get them to take that field goal post back another 3 miles to the Cumberland River? How do we get there? I think you got to put pressure on Texas. I think that is the overall key. You started to see a game plan with Georgia, what they did. And I talked about it heading into the Georgia-Texas game a couple episodes ago on the Week 8 preview, that Georgia needed to put pressure on Texas. No team to this point, since Washington did it in the playoffs last season, has been able to put pressure on this Longhorn group, where you come out, it may not be pretty, but you come out and you get the first round kind of blow. You get the first big lead. You go up 7, 10 nothing, just out of the gate. Shock the system. Get out in front. Punch them right in the face and say, "Hey, we're here. We're not going down. Like, we're not backing down. We're ready for a four-quarter fight." And I think that's what they're going to have to do. They need to jump out to an early lead. It needs to probably be like what they did with Bama. It needs to just kind of follow the same script with the Bama game. I don't think Texas is going to be as undisciplined as Bama was, or, maybe give them up some of the plays that were made through the air, because this is a much better secondary. This is one of the best secondaries in the country, or just overall defensive units in the country. But listen, Vanderbilt is a scrappy group. They know how to get under the skin of these teams when they really shouldn't. And so let's see if Vanderbilt can just get out to an early lead and just kind of take it from there. Just shock the system, especially because especially now, how bad Texas got beat down last week. You get out to a lead like that, now maybe you get them second guessing. They're like, okay, like I thought we were over this, and now they're not. And so they're like, okay, what do we do? They start, maybe you can get them kind of scrambling some. They're gonna have to get pressure on Quinn Ewers. Vanderbilt is 73rd in team sacks, so they're not getting a whole lot. But listen, that's the key. You cannot let Quinn Ewers just sit back in the pocket. He's not very good under duress, or if you get him on the run, going like side to side, having him throw like all on a lateral. So if you let him just sit in the back of the pocket, plant his feet, and pick whoever he wants to throw to, whether it be Wingo, Golden, Bond, who's questionable, I believe, coming into this, his ankle, and then you have Gunnar Helm, who's always going to be an X factor. I mean, he'll pick you apart. I mean, he's one of the best. Given time, he's one of the best quarterbacks in the country. So Vanderbilt needs to find a way to get pressure, create havoc, force turnovers, do something. They've got to make this thing ugly. They have to. I mean, Texas gave up 7 sacks last week. You're going to need probably at least 2 to 4, I would think. You got to keep Texas off schedule. Make them beat you. I would rather see you not get beat by an explosive play and see you just force them to go the length of the field each and every drive to score points. If they do that, you tip your cap. You say, "Hey, we did our best. You just outmanned us." But if you give up explosive plays, you're not getting pressure on him, which just means that he's going to pick you apart. Then it's going to be a long day. Talked about explosive plays. Texas, 49 explosive plays of 20 yards or more. They only had 4 last week. Again, they need to replicate what Georgia did. Keep everything in front of you, get pressure, and you will have some success. Vanderbilt is 69th in pass yards allowed, so they're giving up just over 215 yards a game. But they are giving up 11.3 yards per completion too. So they're giving up chunks for sure. And I just don't know if that's going to play into what Texas wants to do, or if Vanderbilt maybe is there a reason for that? And then Diego Paiva, I forget how. My bad on the botched. I apologize. Needs to have his Alabama type game again. I was watching the highlight of that today, trying to just look over, see what Vanderbilt, find the tips, the tricks, what they need to do to win the game. Against Bama, the RPO game was massive in that game. His legs were so critical in that. Against Alabama, he had 20 carries for 56 yards. He also was really efficient throwing the football, 16 to 20. He was for 215 yards, 2 touchdowns passing. And a big reason for that was because of how well the RPO game was. They were able to just keep Bama guessing all game long. They were able to make Bama do stupid decisions, get them out of sorts, and it really was effective at taking down the Tide. And that's what they're going to need to do against Texas. You cannot be able, you've got to be able to use your legs, keep the chains rolling. You got to stay ahead of schedule. But I mean, like, his legs are going to be massive because they're not much of a running threat. But if you can somehow just get Texas's defense out of sorts and not force the football, then we'll be okay. But I just think he's going to have some sort of Alabama type game again, replicate that some way. If you can do that, again, those are the big keys for me. But if you're Texas, make Vanderbilt be one-dimensional. Stop the run. Stop Paiva and that running game from doing what they want to do, which is stay ahead of script, make things more manageable, convert on second and third downs. Vandy rush offense is 63rd in the country. Their pass offense isn't any better. It's 93rd. And Texas has the second best passing defense in the country. So if you can make them one-dimensional, make them throw the football, make Paiva beat you with his arm. And if he does, again, you tip the cap. But I think they'd feel a lot better if they're like, okay, we're going to focus, stop the run, and keep everything in front and make you beat us. And we'll see. I mean, you have guys like Barron and Makumbo and Muhammad back there on the back end. I think Texas likes their matchups right there for sure. I just don't think there's anybody that's like worrisome that they're looking at that Vanderbilt side and like, okay, we need to keep an eye on him. This isn't a Ryan Williams. This isn't like a Dominic Lovett or an Arian Smith. So like, I just don't see where Vanderbilt maybe has that matchup advantage on the outside. Texas, talked about Vanderbilt getting a fast start. Texas needs a fast start, especially after last week falling behind 23-0. Cannot afford to fall behind. Need to get out in front early. Put all of maybe last week's worries away and just focus on making an early statement. Not messing around. Don't do what Bama did. Get out in front early and then see how the game goes from there. But I just think that a fast start will be much needed. And then get your playmakers going. Very limited last week. And that was basically because Georgia was getting home every down and Quinn Ewers had no time to find anybody. But take advantage of the mismatches. I mean, Gunnar Helm's going to be the X factor in this one. I expect him to have a big game. Ryan Wingo, the speedster, Matthew Golden. These guys are all speedsters. Find them in space, and connect. There was a lot of throws that Ewers and Manning missed last week where they had guys underneath and they were trying to go over the top. Like, if you find those guys out and feed them the ball and let them go yards after the catch. See what happens there. I would rather take my chances with that than trying to force one down the field. And then get Vandy off schedule. Texas set 15th in tackles for loss. Third down defense, Texas ranks 10th in the nation. Vanderbilt is a pretty good third down offense, but if you can get them behind the chains, take away the running game, get them behind the chains, third down and longs, I think that would lean the Longhorns. I like Texas to win this one. I think they're going to get back on track. 37-17, maybe close early, but I just think it's too much Texas. Let's just hope that Vanderbilt keeps it competitive enough. Maybe they keep them ranked. Kind of dirty how the AP just waits till they play Texas to rank them. What the heck? Come on. We need to do better, AP. Associated Press. All right, moving on. To the number one. Excuse me, I'm thinking about the Vanderbilt game too much. The number 21 Missouri Tigers will head to Tuscaloosa, the T-Town, to take on the number 15 Alabama Crimson Tide. Missouri coming off a comeback victory against Auburn, while Alabama is looking to bounce back into the win column after falling to the Tennessee Vols. And just looking to get back on track. I mean, spoiler alert, talk about the keys to victory here in a second. There is some big-time news that we're going to talk about here in a second. I'll give you 1 second, though. All right. So, Brady Cook is doubtful in this game. And I saw that after I made my preview thing for this. So, one of my keys for Bama was you got to force Brady Cook to beat you. Now, if he plays, I think kind of the same thing applies here, but Drew Pine is going to be expected starter. Excuse me. I guess he'll be the expected starter in this one. So he's a former Arizona State quarterback. He's okay. Nothing's going to overwhelm you. If you're a Bama fan, I wouldn't be nervous at all. But listen, the way the defense has been, lacking in the secondary, and then with the penalties, offensive struggles, maybe. But I just think it's not going to be anything worrisome. I'd be kind of approaching this same way with Brady Cook. Brady Cook, just with the experience and that veteran spot, is why I was going to lean maybe taking Bama or taking Missouri in the points here. But with him possibly not playing, I would lean more Bama. But we're going to get into the keys here. So Bama, it's like a reoccurring record here. Just like a broken record, I think is a better word. Run the ball. I wrote it with 2 exclamation points tonight. Run the dang ball. Jam Miller, Justice Haynes combined have not combined for 70 or more yards in an SEC game yet this year. What's that all about? We have 2 guys capable enough at doing something when given the chance, but they don't do it at all. And Jam Miller's last 3 games, he's been the leading rusher for Alabama. Guess these stat lines for your leading ball carrier for the Crimson Tide. 45 yards, 42 yards, 42 yards. That's just not good enough. You cannot be the leading rusher on an Alabama-led team. And the total number is 42. That just clearly means that you don't care about running the football enough because the carries aren't even that much. He only ran for 12 carries. He's ran for 12 carries, 15, I think, and like 12. So the workload's not much. You're not getting anything because they don't expect you to run the football. So nobody's intimidated by it. And Missouri is a middle of the pack defense, rush and run. They're allowing just about 115 yards a game. So it's going to be tough to run the ball again. I mean, getting that outside zone, those quarterback runs on the outside is going to be the way they like to roll with. But man, they've got to find a way to run the football. Run the football. Run the dang ball. They're just completely going away from it. Again, I look back at last week. They started the second half, 8 straight runs, and then the rest of the game they only ran it 7 times. I don't know what's going through the head of everyone where they're just not. They don't trust the running backs enough, or they just are completely just baffled and just with this notion that Jalen Miller has to win them the game. Win the game. Have to win the game, guys. You got to stop the penalties. Stop the penalties. Stop the count, guys. Stop the count, as everyone likes to say. 129 penalties per game Alabama is. That's ridiculous. And it's been like that for a couple years now. They're averaging 8 a game. 8 a game. I mean, don't even need to talk about the Neyland debacle the last 2 times they played there. I mean, they are just an undisciplined group. And it's on both sides of the football. Just silly, silly mistakes that are completely costing this team each and every week. When they're in dogfights, whether they're losing games 2 now, or they're in dogfights with South Carolina and with Georgia, USF. No matter who it is, they're just not helping themselves out because they're just completely shooting themselves in the foot. I did talk about how they needed to get pressure and force Brady Cook to beat you. Even if he plays, I still think it's the same notion. Force the quarterback to beat you. Now, even with the backup, Missouri is 50th in pass offense. They just haven't been the same team as they were last year. And possibly that's just how big of a hole that Cody Schrager left. And Noel's a solid running back there, but he's not Schrager. And that just shows how big of a hole and big of a piece that he was to that offense because Luther Burden's numbers are down, Theo Weiss's numbers are down, Brady Cook's numbers are down. And either it's because of that or something else that's not being talked about. But if you're Alabama's defense, find a way to get pressure, make things uncomfortable for Missouri, especially whoever's playing quarterback, get pressure, create turnovers, do something. And don't create stupid penalties. If you're Missouri, make someone else but Ryan Williams beat you. They're just like Jalen Milroe with being one-dimensional. They are so dependent on Ryan Williams. A 17-year-old they are depending on to make every single play. Here's a nice little stat for you. Ryan Williams has 649 yards receiving this year, 7 touchdowns. The next highest is Jeremy Bernard at 381 with only 2 touchdowns. I mean, that itself. Ryan Williams had 18 targets last week against Tennessee. I tell you, I don't have to look up the number to tell you that Jeremy Bernard didn't have that many targets thrown to him. They just, and I can tell you right now that a lot of those plays and targets were not scripted or designed to just go to Ryan Williams. So Jalen Miller either doesn't trust anybody else or he just is hoping that Ryan Williams is going to make the play. I would maybe lean that he just doesn't trust anybody else at this point. I mean, you've seen that big of a separation, and you're seeing it now week in and week out. There just must be something that Milroe likes and Williams has that nobody else has. And I know Ryan Williams is a hell of a ball player. He is. He will be great for the next 2 years after this year. But you've got to be able to spread it out some. It's the same problem Ole Miss has with Trey Harris. Trey Harris is one of the best receivers in the country. I mean, there's nothing against Trey Harris, but Jackson Dart just throws him the football more than anybody else. Same thing, same rules apply here. The best teams are able to spread the ball out. They are able to find their guy when needed upon, like LSU. LSU is a good example here. Kyron Lacey is the best receiver on that group, but he's not leading the receiving room with targets or receptions every week. He might be there ready to make the big play when needed, but Nussmeier can definitely throw the ball when needed to. He'll throw it to Anderson. He'll throw it to Daniels. He'll throw it to Savion Thomas. He'll throw it to Mason Taylor if they need to. He counts on them to make that play. I don't think Jalen Milroe counts on his other receivers to make plays. Maybe that's just a hunch that I have. But when you see numbers like that, and it only continues to get bigger and bigger as you go down the list. So I think that it's just a trust issue with he doesn't expect anybody else to make plays that he wants to be made. So he just goes to Williams to do it. And he tried to do it last week, and he had a really bad turnover in the end zone. Threw it in like double coverage, trying to get it to Williams. Wasn't there, got picked off. Alabama needs to get out, not be in third and long spots. Here's a crazy stat for you. I got this from via the Josh Pate College Football Show. Go subscribe to that, by the way. Bama in third and long, so 7 or more yards. They're 5 for 23 this year. That is a 15.2% hit rate. It's 127th in the country. When they get into third and manageables, so 3 yards or less, they're 15 to 20 for 70. That's 75%. That's 18th in the country. Missouri's third down defense is 9th in the country. They're only allowing 28% time hit rate. What does that tell you? Well, it kind of goes back to the penalties. Don't make stupid penalties. Don't fall behind the chains like that and stay ahead of schedule. I mean, it's nothing overly crazy to think about. It's stay ahead of schedule. Don't fall behind the chains. Taking sacks, stupid penalties will kill this team and make this a 4-quarter fight, no matter who's playing quarterback for Missouri, whether it be Drew Pine, Brady Cook, hell, if it was Eli Drinkowitz taking snaps. If Bama's falling behind, getting out of rhythm, getting off schedule, not struggling on offense, well, there you go. And if you're Missouri, get Luther Burden going. 86th in receiving yards he is this year. He was a top 5 receiver last year in stat-wise. And Bama's defense is nothing special. They're giving up over 200 yards a game through the air. Find a way to get your best guy involved. Theo Weiss is a great receiver, but there's no reason why he should be leading. He should be the leading guy statistically than Luther Burden. Luther Burden is one of the best receivers in the nation, and he's just not getting the target share. He's not getting the receptions that he needs as the playmaker he is. He force feed him the ball. I just went on a rant why Ryan Williams is getting too much of the football. But in this case, Luther Burden needs to have a massive game in this game. Somehow, some way. Theo Weiss needs to step up big time too. Both of them. But I think Burden's he's going to have to have the bigger game. So as far as prediction goes, now with Cook, I had 27-20. Bama would win. Missouri to cover. Now, I'll push my score to Bama 27 to Missouri. I'm going to say 13. So that would be 14 right there on the line. But I don't know what Bama team I'm going to get. Either I'm going to get a team that is able to put points up, not create stupid penalties, and play overall just good football, or I'm going to get a Tennessee version, a second half of the Georgia game, the South Carolina version, just where it's ugly and gross and you can't do anything. So I don't know. I'm expecting Bama to get right here, but who knows? Maybe Eli and Missouri can put the final blow on Alabama and just knock them out of playoff contention. If they lose this game, if Bama loses another game this year before, or just that matter, loses another game, they're gone. They're done. 100%. Not making the playoff. Not their strength schedule's not good enough outside of the Georgia game, and even really only like half of the Georgia game. I know you won the game, but outside of that, you have nothing. You would lose. That means you would lose the LSU game, lose the Tennessee game you already lost. You struggled for 3.5 quarters with USF. Struggled down to the last play against South Carolina. There's just nothing. You lost to Vanderbilt. No offense. We like Vanderbilt. But we can't be losing to Vanderbilt. So this is a make or break game for Alabama. They better show up ready to go. All right, moving on. We're going to get out of the SEC now. Head to Big Ten land as there is a sneaky, sneaky game in Madison, Wisconsin on Saturday night as the number 3 Penn State Nittany Lions head up to Camp Randall Stadium to take on the 5-2 Wisconsin Badgers. Penn State 6.5-point favorite, over under at 47.5. Is this a look ahead spot? Can Wisconsin catch Penn State in the look ahead spot? Penn State has Ohio State on the horizon. The Buckeyes are coming to town. Big noon has ruined the whiteout games for Penn State. That's a different topic for a different day. But listen, can Wisconsin catch them sleeping here maybe? My gut wants to say yes. I really do think. And James Franklin has dominated teams not named Michigan or Ohio State. But every once in a while, he'll have this kind of slip-up game where you just don't expect him to – you don't expect Penn State to lose these games, and then they do. But how does Wisconsin do? Let's see. Well, Wisconsin needs to stop the run because those that two-headed monster in the backfield with Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. I mean, if Penn State can just run the football, then shoot, it'll be a nice, easy day in the ball down up there in the Cheesehead State or whatever they want to call it. But I mean, they can run the football, then it's going to take a lot of pressure off of Aller, especially with that crowd. It's going to quiet the crowd. He'll take time off the clock. It'll be a nice, easy day. And Wisconsin is a middle-of-the-pack rush defense. Penn State's pretty good, 25th in the country. Wisconsin needs to keep this a low-scoring game. I think this needs to be like a slop fest almost, at least for Wisconsin's sake. Wisconsin is 18th in scoring defense, only giving up about 17 points a game. Penn State's 28th in scoring offense, so 34 a game there. But listen, if you can keep this a lower-scoring, one-score game going into like the third, fourth quarter, then I think you have a really good shot to win this game, at least cover the line. Wink, wink. But I think it all though falls back with Braden Locke. He needs to have a clean game. He needs to play a clean game, play a really good game. This is going to be his biggest challenge yet. He came in after Tyler Van Dyke went down in the first drive of the game for Wisconsin against Alabama. But he's he's settling in nicely. There was a nice three-game part of the schedule where not against most superior teams, so a lot of inferior competition, but for a freshman quarterback to kind of get his feet wet, get settled in, get rolling, I think that was really important. And now we'll put it to the test here. Last 3 games, he's 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions, so we need to cut that down. Penn State has forced at least 1 interception in the last two of the last 3 games. So you got to limit the mistakes. Don't turn the football over. And it's a pretty solid secondary for Penn State. But again, you can this is going to be a game where you're going to need to run the football really, really well because you're going to need to take pressure off of that, especially with those edge rushers and Abdul Carter and company. They want to get after the quarterback. Well, if you can run the football enough, it's going to take pressure off of that. It's going to take pressure off your pass protection in the O-line. Now you're going to be able to find those throws, even if they're not deep shots, just underneath yards after catch are going to be a big play here. And you're going to need to capitalize in the red zone when you get down there. I think you're going to have to score points, not field goals, touchdowns. Going to have to capitalize when you get down there. Penn State, I think if you're Penn State, you're just going to need to, no pun intended here, jump ahead early, jump around, get it. Take the crowd out of it. It's going to be a lively crowd for sure. Saturday night, looking to pull off a big upset. But if you can get out ahead early like this, especially with a young quarterback on the other side, that's going to be really big because, I mean, you saw what Bama did. And Bama, even though, granted, it didn't help that Van Dyke went out. But, I mean, you can just take out the crowd early, suck all the energy out, and then they just, as soon as jump around plays, they're all gone. That's going to be something Penn State wants to do. And can the passing game be effective enough? 29th in passing offense. Wisconsin 7th in passing yards allowed. So their secondary, those guys like Hunter Wohler, Ricardo Hallman, Preston Zachman, and Xavier Lucas, they're going to have to step up. They've been playing really well all year long, but this is their biggest challenge yet. And this is also Drew Aller's probably biggest challenge yet. He has not faced a secondary as good as this. All respect to UCLA and West Virginia and everyone else. But this is the biggest challenge that Penn State's going to have. This two-game stretch right here with Wisconsin and then Ohio State is really going to make or break Penn State's season because they don't play really anybody else. They play Washington later on, but that's nothing crazy intimidating defensively. Defensive-wise, this is the two biggest stretch. These are the two best defenses you're going to see all year. Let's see how they do. I mean, Drew Aller he's played really good football for most of the year. This is going to be your big challenge right here. This is challenge number one. And if you can have success, that's why I think running the football is going to be big. Because again, just with Braden Locke, if you can run the football enough, now you take pressure off of Aller trying to fall behind, make big plays. And then that's when you start forcing stuff. And when you start forcing stuff, that's when turnovers happen. And then you get off schedule, you fall behind, and then upsets happen. But you can stay ahead of schedule, stay on track, run the football, maybe be able to find enough holes to exploit immunity and take advantage of a really strong pass game or passing defense with Wisconsin. I like Penn State to win this one outright. I do think it's really close, though. I could see upset on the horizon. Wisconsin with that look-ahead spot, I think, is no joke. I think Penn State needs to be head on a swivel here and not be looking ahead because if they do, Wisconsin will win. But I do think Penn State wins. I think it's ugly. I think it's gross, but I do think they pull out 28-24. Penn State wins. Wisconsin covers. We move on. And I have to check my phone real quick. Oh. All right, there we go. Perfect. Oh, do not do that. Ooh, that near disaster right there. We responded. We stayed cool and under pressure, kind of like how Drew Aller needs to. See how we did that? We did. All right, speaking of inferior opponents, that was mean of me. Number 20, Illinois, heading to Autzen Stadium to take on the number one team in the land, the Oregon Ducks. Oregon moves to number one after Texas lost this past weekend. So, just talked about how Vanderbilt can pull off the upset. How can Wisconsin pull off the big upset? Well, Illinois hasn't beaten the number one team in the country since 2007. That was in the almost folklorian, the mythical, the mystic 2007 season, where upsets happened every week. Teams that had no business being as good as they were good, and chaos all year long. Well, that was part of it right here. Illinois beat Ohio State, looking to do the same thing this weekend. So how does Illinois do it? They're a 21.5-point underdog. 54.5 is the over-under. Illinois, they're going to need to get this game to the fourth quarter. I think I talked about this when they went to Nebraska. They just having to keep it low scoring, even if they have to do it like that, not turn the football over, create turnovers, just make things just uncomfortable for Oregon offensively to where they're not getting anything going. And then if you can do all that, get it to the fourth, then anything happens. Hold on, I got to respond to a text here. But Oregon is tied for 37th in the nation in turnovers lost. So they have been turning the football over some. 7 on the year. Dylan Gabriel has been a little bit careless with the football at times. They'll fumble the football some. Illinois is a really good team at forcing turnovers. They have 13 on the year. They need to make things sloppy, get this thing to the fourth quarter. How we're just talking about. It's tied for 21st in the land. You're going to need probably 1 or 2 at least, if not more. I mean, be as ready to roll or be as ready to capitalize on those mistakes when given the opportunity. But, I mean, if Oregon's going to do that, then you're in a really good. All right, next key for Illinois is to somehow slow down a really, really good passing offense. Oregon is 13th in passing offense, 300 yards a game. When you have guys like Tez Johnson, Evan Stewart, Terrence Ferguson, Treshaun Holden, weapons all around for Dylan Gabriel to just throw whoever he wants to, not to mention you have Jordan James in the backfield. Excuse me. Going to have to find a way to limit it. Illinois is 41st in passing yards allowed. So it's an okay unit, nothing special. But listen, they're good at forcing turnovers. If you can play good enough defense, get pressure on Gabriel, force him to make mistakes, speed that clock up, that's how you're going to stay in this type of game. And then lastly for Illinois, can they do enough offensively? You have pretty good guys on the outside, Pat Bryant, Zachary Franklin, and Colin Dixon. But are they good enough to take that extra step needed to beat a team like Oregon in Oregon at Autzen Stadium? Can Altmaier, play a really good game? He's going to have to, but he's going to have to get his playmakers involved. I just find it hard to know if Illinois has enough offensively to keep up with Oregon. And maybe they keep it ugly and gross for a little bit, but there's only so long I think you can hold down Oregon. But if you're Oregon, you're going to want to make things uncomfortable for Altmaier because Altmaier's going to have a really, really good game. One of probably his best of his career. And Altmaier has been really good this year. Over 1,500 yards, 65% completion percentage. He's thrown 15 touchdowns, only thrown 1 pick. Really, really good. Now, where they struggle in is keeping him upright because he's been sacked 20 times this year. That is ranked 11th in college football. And Oregon is 22nd in team sacks. So you get guys like Mateo Uyunglele, Jeffrey Bossa, Derek Harmon, and company getting after him. That's when the turnovers happen because that, you talk about speeding the clock up. I mean, Altmaier has not faced a defense like this. Michigan, okay, they're a pretty okay unit, but outside of that, it's not compared to what he's about to see on Saturday. So that's why you're going to have to control the clock, convert third down, stay ahead of the chains. Everything's going to have to go right for Illinois in this game if they're going to have a chance to win this one. I mean, Boise State was pretty close at beating them. Idaho was pretty close, but outside of that, I mean, Ohio State too. So, I mean, there's been a couple close calls for Oregon at home, but nobody's been able to put the final dagger in them. And we'll see if Brett Bielema can or not. Force Illinois to catch up. Talk about how if their offense is going to be good enough to even stay in this game. Well, if you're up 14-0 out of the gate already, you just kind of blink your eye and you're like, what just happened? You dig an early hole for them. I don't see how they can come back in this one. I like Oregon to win this one, 34-17. I think it's all Ducks in this one. Maybe it's close for a little bit, but Oregon's going to roll in this one. I think that line's a big number, so I would take Illinois to cover it, but give me the Ducks. Win a easy game for them. All right, heading into the latter stages now of the show. So I'm going to move my iPad over. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the podcast here. We are trying to get 200 subscribers. So if you're new around here, subscribe, get that number up, like the videos, and hit us up on Spotify as well. College Football Talk, Hunter DeLauder. Follow and listen there. On Twitter, @DeLauderHunter. Instagram, Hunter.DeLauder83. So hit me up there as well. So around the country, we're going to get in the plane, and we're going to fly around all the other biggest games of the weekend. So we have Syracuse at Pitt. Both teams come into this one with really good records. I believe Syracuse is 5-1 and Pitt is 6-0. Pitt trying to get to 7-0. Also, that's tomorrow night, or I guess Thursday. And number 17, Boise State at UNLV on Friday night. UNLV, 19th ranked rushing defense. Ashton Denty has 17 rushing touchdowns, over 1,200 yards rushing. He's averaging almost 10 yards a carry, and he's ranked first in rushing yards this year. So there you go. That's a massive game for either one of those teams. It's two teams that don't like each other very much, and it's a game that has high stakes implications for the Group of 5 race. So I like Boise State in that one. I think Boise State's a 3.5-point favorite, but I haven't seen a team that can stop Genty. Until I do, I have no problem taking Boise State, regardless of how well UNLV is statistically. I mean, talk's cheap until you can prove it on the field, and so I haven't seen a team that has yet. I mean, Oregon couldn't stop them, and Oregon's a pretty good defense, I'd say, right? Nebraska's at number 4, Ohio State. I expect the Buckeyes to roll in that one. I think they're like 26-point favorite in that one. Nebraska still looking for that elusive 6 win. Number 12, Notre Dame heads to take on number 24, Navy. Shout out Navy. We're Black Knights podcast. Go Army, beat Navy. This game is being played at MetLife Stadium, I believe. Navy is 4th in scoring offense. They want to score really fast, score fast and efficient. Folks, they have a passing game, by the way. 44 points per game they're putting up. It's going to be good on good in this game because Notre Dame's ranked 5th in scoring defense. They're only giving up about 11 points a game. So I think Army presents a better challenge for Notre Dame, but certainly Navy can keep this close. I think they're like a 12-point underdog in this one. So if Navy can get out early, and talk about teams needing a fast start, Navy getting out early will be massive if they want to win this game. If it's step 1 of the doomsday scenario, step 1, need Navy to win. Need for Navy to win. Anyway, Washington heads to number 13, Indiana. College game day will be there. But Curtis Rourke won't, as he will be out for this one. He had just had thumb surgery, I believe. Taven Jackson's going to get the start. He came in, played nicely against Nebraska after Rourke went out, I believe after the first quarter. Let's see. It's going to be a solid Washington defense, nothing special. So there will be room to attack. I mean, this is one of the best passing offenses in the country at Indiana. Is it going to be the same with not Rourke being there? Sure, you're going to miss the added element of just Rourke, how good of a quarterback he is. But I still believe in Kurt Signetti and that offense to find ways to exploit a Washington defense that is susceptible. I mean, they let Iowa put 40 on them. So, this is a pretty good Washington offense. So we'll give Indiana fits, maybe some with Will Rogers and company, but I like Indiana to win that one. OU is at number 18, Ole Miss. So here's a fun one for you. If you're looking to watch a team get their butt whooped at the line of scrimmage all game long, Ole Miss is 2nd in scoring defense. They're 1st in rushing defense, and they're 9th in team sacks, guys. Guess what OU is in sacks allowed? Anybody? Any takers? Huh? 132nd? Did I hear that right? Yes. 132nd in sacks allowed. They're giving up an average of 4 a game. Wonderful. Now, I will say OU's D line. Let's see if they can get pressure on Jackson Dart. Excuse me. I'm getting all these names mixed up. But I still don't think it's going to be enough. I mean, OU's defense has played as good as anybody this year, but you can only play so well when you have an anemic offense like that. Hell, I could get out there and probably do a lot better than what OU is doing. So, anyway, Arkansas heads to Starkville to play Mississippi State, and it could be a sneaky, fun game to watch. Two scrappy teams, offensive gurus with Jeff Lebby on Mississippi State and Bobby Petrino and Sam Pittman for Arkansas. So we'll see. Van Buren's been playing a lot better. Mississippi State's just been a scrappy out for a lot of these teams. They've been giving people fits, and I expect a really good game here. Number 11, BYU is at UCF. The undefeated Cougars are looking to stay unbeaten, but they're going to have to stop the run because UCF is 3rd in the nation rushing offense. Last week, they rushed for 354 yards against a pretty solid Iowa State team, and BYU is 64th in rush defense. So there's your big challenge for the day. Ollie Gordon was really able to have success last week, and they barely got out of that one. So now you have to go cross-country down to Orlando. Be a good challenge for sure. Could be a sneaky upset right there. FSU's at Miami. T's and P's there. That FSU fan still has to eat his dog poop. So we're still waiting on that. Curse is yet to be lifted. And Michigan State and Michigan play each other. It's definitely doesn't have any sort of hype or attention around it as usually does in years prior. It's probably because both teams stink right now. We'll see how that one goes. Kansas State play each other this weekend in the Sunflower Showdown. So I like Kansas State to win that one. I think they're an 11-point favorite, but I think they're going to be able to dominate. Kansas is one of those teams in the same boat with like Florida State, ranked preseason, have just completely bottomed out. Just disappointing and really gross years this year. It's kind of just trying to turn the page to next year. Number 22, SMU is at Duke. SMU and Duke both come into this game 6-1. SMU is a really sloppy game against BYU at home, away from being 7-0. And we'll see how that one goes. I think SMU's an 11.5-point favorite heading into that game. I kind of lean the Mustangs winning that game outright. I mean, Duke struggled with Florida State last week at home, and I don't know if the word's out on that one, but Florida State's kind of bad at football this year. So I guess we'll see. Anyway, last game here. Cincy's at Colorado. Both teams coming to this one 5-2. Colorado, though, seeking to get to bowl eligibility for the first time since 2020, but seeking to get 6 wins for the first time since 2016. That 2020 year, they were 4-2. But the last time they had at least 6 wins was 2016 when they went on to lose in the Alamo Bowl. So Dion blowing expectations out of the water there. And that will conclude our trip from around the country. Tune in next time when we take our same flight on Recap Land. All right. Moving on now to our final segment of the night. It's everyone's favorite night or favorite segment. It's Best Bets. And I don't know why it still says recap because we aren't recapping. Please pause as I delete that word. All right, we're back. So, Best Bets. Hey, 6-0 last week. Red hot. I don't know the words out yet. 15-1 the last 3 weeks. We're 23-10 this season. So, again, if you haven't hopped on already, there's still time. Now, we always stay humble in this podcast because at any moment it could bottom out like Kansas and Florida State, and we could crash and burn. That's just how it is. Hopefully, we can stay above 500 for as long as possible. So, here's the plays for the week on the College Football Talk. Hunter DeLauder. Here is the best bets. Wisconsin plus 6.5. Kansas State minus 11. Colorado minus 5.5. Boise State money line. Ole Miss minus 20.5. That number dropped from 21 to 20.5. So hopped on that. Hop on it before it goes back up. Oklahoma cannot do anything offensively. They will get destroyed. This is a great game. This is at Ole Miss. This will be a dominant display by the Rebels. And I like the Ole Miss Oklahoma under 49. You can parlay it if you want. I am not. I'm going to do 2 separate bets. Again, you have 2 teams here. You have one team for Ole Miss, really good on offense, really solid on defense, especially getting after the quarterback and stopping the run. What's Oklahoma, I guess, good at? Running the football some. Even then, they're not really. And they can't score at all. So, and Oklahoma's defense is good enough. I think they're going to be able to keep this game in hand or keep it lower scoring than just Ole Miss blowing them out. It's going to be a blowout, but I don't think it's going to be a crazy blowout. I could see where it's like 31-7, maybe 31-3. High scoring for one team, low, nothing for the other. So I like the under in that one for sure. But other than that, listen, those are the best bets. Hopefully we can ride the wave that we're on right now and into week 10 because, I mean, we're just trying to stay hot here. Staying hot is the name of the game. So hop on them if you want to make some money in theory. But if you don't, if you want to fade them, be my guest. But other than that, guys, that is it for today. For this edition of College Football Talk with Hunter DeLauder. That was week 9 preview, excuse me. Make sure you guys are subscribing to the podcast. I'm trying to get those numbers up, keep mentioning it. But the only way we can do that is if you guys out there subscribe, like the videos, share them as well. And let's just grow this channel. Keep growing it. The content keeps coming out for twice a week, all season long. And then once we get into the off season, we'll still be pushing content out all year long. So do not want to miss anything. But the only way you guys aren't missing anything is if you're subscribed, notifications on, liking, and sharing the videos. So with all that being said, I'll be back Monday-ish, probably, for week 9 recap. And then we have week 10 preview on the horizon. I have something brewing there. We announced sometime by next episode. If it happens. So plenty to still the works, but a little treat for everyone for the week 10 preview if it gets made. So stick around for that. Only way you know that is if you are subscribed and notifications on. So make sure you're doing that. That was a nice little transition right back to it. And other than that, make sure you guys enjoy this weekend of college football. Expect a really good weekend. Possible upsets on the horizon. And listen, it's get packing or get it right. So make sure you guys subscribed. I'll see you next time. This is College Football Talk. I'm Hunter DeLauder signing off.